My name is Alan Pearson. I'm nearly 80 and I'm basically a retired art teacher. I've always had a creative bent and I have worked, I love film, I love painting, I love drawing, I love ceramics. I've done a bit of filmmaking. So really and thoroughly enjoyed the whole gamut of creative activities. And the good thing is I know that I've inspired a lot of young people as well to really love what they can do. I really enjoy illustration and cartooning and featuring a lot of local identities, but also other things sort of occupy my mind too. They're a little bit strange. I went to high school. I could always draw and fiddle around a bit, but when I started school in year 7, I was the only person to get an A for art, and and I was quite inspired by that. Suddenly realised that maybe perhaps I was good at something. I did very well, and I went on to Teachers College and thoroughly enjoyed working in a whole variety of creative activities. Well, firstly, my career as teaching started at Druin, and it was a really lovely country school. And the other thing, I coached the football team there, and I taught Peter Knight, who became an AFL champion, taught him everything he knows. Well, that's my story anyway. I taught at Ringwood High and I loved it. I really love working with kids and seeing them evolve and develop creative, do well in creative areas. And then I got a promotion to Yarram, which was a country town. We fitted in really well down there. Teachers were fairly highly respected. I found the kids very receptive. They loved their art. And we always had big art classes, and it was really good to see youngsters become heavily involved and really enjoying the subject and going on to develop and grow in those areas. Yarram's about 200 kilometres from Melbourne, and it's a beautiful little country town and environment. It's very close to Port Albert and the Nooramunga Inlet, which is down near Wilson's Promontory, and a beautiful environment to live in. We ended up building a mud brick house, a big mud brick house on acreage and with magnificent views down over Bass Strait and the surrounding area. I loved the life out there. We had big open log fires in the house and so on. I love fishing, I love sailing, and I was rather spent a lot of time doing those things. Eventually I became Commodore of the Port Albert Yacht Club. I've always loved boats, and we ended up with little, 14-foot runabout and so on. And then eventually from that I graduated up to a boat called Seal. It was a 27-foot fishing boat that had been remodelled until it was the best looking boat in Port Albert. It was probably close to 100 years old. I formed a syndicate and we went there, we bought it. And from then on, every Friday night we would go fishing. Sometimes there'd be 6, 7 or 8 of us on board. It was, the comradeship was very, very special. The fishing crew consisted of John Rojo, who's about 6'4", an obsessive fisherman and an excellent fisherman. John was an art teacher with me, a very, very talented man. And we had a pretty wonderful department. Then Evan was the deputy principal and then the acting principal. He enjoyed to get out and just be fairly relaxed and because a lot of pressures at school, and it was nice and relaxing to get out with some mates and just let a bit of steam off. Indy was the maths coordinator. He was a very funny boy. He liked a quiet beer or 20. Sunday cricket knocks Indy around. He played cricket on Sundays. He was captain. used to have a few drinks. And this, of course, Indy's a big boy, so he's over here, and then all the blokes fishing are over here. So Indy outweighed everybody. Bob's Belly was a biologist. Bob was a lovely guy, loved his fishing. Jerry Freestone also was another one who came. Another one who had played a big part in our life was Jeff Key, who was a local plumber, Pat Doughty. Yeah, they were people who were a lot of fun. So we used that boat fairly regularly, you know, and sometimes there'd be 2, 3, 4 of you, or there'd be half a dozen. And at one stage I did damage my back, and I spent a lot of time in bed, and I just, I suppose I was a bit bored, so I started to do cartoons. I was sort of like a finely tuned instrument and very aware of people's foibles and faults, yeah, and good nature. So the people I sort of fished with were all, and I was friendly with, were all lovely people. Yeah, they all had a sense of humour, and I'm fairly sensitive to the attitude, their characters, the way they work. So everybody's a cartoon character. I mean, you really can look at people and just the way what they say and the way they move around and the things they do. I just love it. It's just something I absorb and like to draw because a picture's worth 1,000 words. With my cartoon, I was sort of cartooning all the time, and as I say, I like lampoon people and their behaviour a little bit. Just gradually started to depict a lot of the local activities, like in the football club that I was involved in, and particularly with fishing, highlight the activities of seal. This is Bob at the Sardine Syndicate. This is my boat over here. Well, we had some shareholders in it, but I'm just saying maybe these boys were a bit selfish. They should have invested in a big boat like ours. This is a picture of Misery.
These blokes.
John catches all the fish. This is John Rojo, who's a super fisherman. Jerry tries, doesn't catch many fish at all. Bob's German descent, so I like to depict him with a German helmet on. And they're out fishing and they're worried either we're sitting on the bottom of or something quite surrealistic is happening here. I mean, the reality is the boat's sunk. One for the road run pole and we'll make tracks. Well, the idea is they've been that greedy, the boat's nearly sunk and there are other sharks waiting to eat them. I wrote quite a few stories. I love painting, I love drawing, I love writing, and bring a lot of pleasure to my life. Well, we caught quite a few fish. I fish in the channels. As we got a bit more adventuresome, we'd actually go down to Wilson's Prom, down to Refuge Cove, and also down to right at the bottom at Skull Rock. It's a really sinister place that makes you feel very uncomfortable. It's a huge island, and it looks as though some monster's coming up from the deep. So you can just see the eyes, and then you can see a big hole where the brain would be, and you expect the body to come up as well. So that's featured in a lot of the cartoons and drawings that I've done. It's inspired me. The tides were big, big high tide and low tide. The place was full of sandflies, so you had to be fairly careful down there and make sure you put rid or something like that on. We did run aground once or twice, and quite often you have to use big oar or go ashore and find a big branch so you could prop seal up and sit there for maybe another 4 hours or something before seal would refloat and you were off again. We had a mooring outside the hotel, and surprisingly enough, it was free. There still was a 27-footer, so it's sometimes a little, when the tides were running, it was a little bit difficult to get it into position. But we always managed to do that. These are just jokes about someone not tying the mooring rope, untying the mooring rope, so we ripped the jetty apart. I suppose some of the locals would have looked on and thought see a few little mishaps and think there were some very funny things happening. Always loved sailing catamarans in particular because you had a trapeze and they went very fast and they were a nice challenge. It's just delightful. Bullet was a Cobra catamaran, a two-man boat, and you had a trapeze there, so the crew had to be out on the trapeze, and the skipper, you'd just sit back and steer it. Oh, we flipped it over a couple of times. You push it to the limit and it just flops over. So yeah, but it was good. It was a lot of fun. And sometimes I did work for the local newspaper occasionally, a frontispiece of each Easter. The Tara Festival, I started for probably 15, 20 years. I do a big A3 cartoon of things, of the theme, and a lot of the local people, they're cartoon characters. Chris McCallum, Jerry Freestone, Jeff Scott, John Rojo, Hula, who else is there? Evan Remfrey, the deputy principal. But it was a lot of fun, and the paper won quite a few awards because that was something that was quite unique. And I wrote the book about Benito's Treasure, which is quite a remarkable story, and illustrated it. I was quite inspired by the area and loved it. There was a little old farmer, bachelor farmer, lived in a little property down the bottom of our hill, Alfred, and I used to spend a lot of time talking to Alfred. Anyway, he was telling me that there was a pirate, Benito. I was inspired by that story, and I was inspired by Skull Rock, and that it's a uniquely Australian story. I have a lot of fun. I've just sort of read people's personalities a little bit, and I've had a lot of fun cartooning and picking up their idiosyncrasies and things like that. I just sit there and I hand twitch it and I just draw. Yeah. Oh no, it was all, you can sort of see our life through them, like my mates are all up there and little things that have, yeah. And as I'd said it, and I just couldn't help. I just sketched all the time from when I was a young kid. I sort of enjoyed just doing the artwork. Yeah. This is just a drawing sort of in progress. So really...
Isn't it Little Johnny?
No, you draw a hill.
I love this one.
And there's snow on the hill. And the sun tends to melt the snow. You're going to get me into trouble for this. And then that's Dad bending over in the bath to pick up the snow.
Wait, you need to do little droplets. Oh, the sun melting.
Oh, okay. I don't want to make it too dull, man. What's that?
No. You need to go.
I think I better call it quits. I'll end up in jail.
You know what?